Kia ora tātou, I'm Mary McCallum, a poet and publisher with the Cuba Press, and we're here today at the Cuba Press offices in Wellington to launch A Question Bigger Than a Hawk by Napier poet and artist Jan FitzGerald. Here's the book, and the cover is a piece of art by Jan herself, who did a lovely handprint of it, and it was turned into a cover by Sarah Bolland. A lovely cover of a hawk, of course, and a rather frantic woman at the bottom, or perhaps a very happy woman standing below. So we're here today in the offices. We're being filmed by Neil Johnston and Linda of Wellington City Libraries. Thank you very much for being here. See, for health reasons, Jan couldn't be here for a launch discussion of any kind, sadly, but we've invited along two other Cuba Press poets to talk with us today, pay tribute to the book, and discuss the work along with their own work in their two books, which we'll hear about shortly. So I want to welcome Maggie Rainey-Smith, who is a Wellington novelist, essayist, and poet. Did I say novelist? Yes, I did.
You did, yeah.
And her book, Formica, actually her first book of poetry ever, came out earlier this year. So Maggie's come from across the harbour today. And we've got Rachel McAlpine, who's walked down from Mount Victoria, and she is a Wellington novelist, web writer, blogger and poet who celebrated her 80th birthday with How to Be Old, which has got this gorgeous yellow cover, so wonderful. That was 2 years ago, I have to say, and here she is. So I asked Maggie and Rachel to join me today because their books share many of the threads in Jan's collection of poetry, mothers and daughters and grandmothers being one of them, childhood in the 1940s and 50s, and the secret lives of women, I think, come through. Secret and perhaps not always so secret lives of women. The art of getting older, which of course is particularly addressed in yours, Rachel, very upfront, but the others also do approach that. And our complicated relationship with machines and household appliances, which Maggie particularly focuses rather fabulously on. So all are wonderful books that share an ageless delight in the world, curiosity about people, and all three poets write with incredible honesty, I think, and thank goodness with a lot of humour, which we all need, particularly in this day and age. So I'm going to kick off with reading the poem that opens the collection, which I think is a terrific way to start. It's called Ladies' Restroom, 1950. Right, here we go. It was almost invisible to passers-by, an old villa set back discreetly from the street in the shade of two tall buildings. I let go of Mother's hand, rushed up the concrete ramp, pushed open green doors with dimpled glass, and stood in a daze of light. In front of a wall-length mirror, women primped and preened. Mother nodded at the row of cubicles. "You go first," she said, dropping a penny in the slot. "And when you come out, leave the door open for me." I washed my hands fiercely and forever with a sweet-smelling soap, watching women dab nail polish on laddered stockings, trace the cupid's bow of their mouths and their lips together. Actresses on the stage of themselves. Are you doing that look, Rachel? Petticoats were hitched up to the waist, dresses smoothed down over hips. The letting out of girdles. Ouch, the nip of clip-on earrings. One woman wore a hat of leaves and berries, bright as a garden. Another, a dead fox slung around her neck. A woman in red high heels asked Mother if she could spray a little perfume on the back of my hand. Mother signed the visitor's book as we left. "What did you write?" I asked. "Thanks for a lovely tinkle," she said. And we walked down the street laughing, two women, hand in hand. So I just love the way that finishes, two women, hand in hand. I feel like a lot of her poems have that, and you too. You have women hand in hand doing these things, and I like the secretness of that. The secret lives, women invisible to passers-by, and they're in there primping and preening like actresses on stage.
It brought back so many memories for me. I had forgotten the nail polish to stop the run in your stockings. Like, wow. I mean, we all did that. And also, people used to say, "I'm going to spend a penny." Now they say, "I'm going to the powder room." So people, you say, "I'm going to spend a penny on my family. I'm going to spend a penny." Instead of saying, "I'm going to the toilet."
Not have a tinkle?
No. With a tinkle, yeah, exactly.
I love it.
But also leaving the door open so you don't have to pay the extra
penny.
Brilliant. Because that was what people did.
Yeah, that's so fantastic, isn't it?
It was kind of a golden age for women's toilets, and it was amazing. If you think now, if you walk down the main street, you see a building standing on its own lawn. It's a war memorial building, better than a cenotaph in many ways, and it's only for women. And there's a chaise longue or something. There's room to change your baby. It's very collegial. There's someone looking after you. You had towels, of course, so somebody had to make sure. I mean, you really felt cared for, and for people who are pregnant or had little children, old ladies, and anyone who just wanted a little lie down, it was amazing. Imagine the city council now saying, right, we need a ladies' restroom at Clayton Quay.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No. We all rush. I used to be ducking into David Jones as my only. See, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
That was pretty
David
good.
Jones.
Well, now we're down to Portaloo, so
no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I hadn't thought about the little lie down, so that's where the word restroom
you could
came.
do
You
that.
actually literally could rest in there. Fantastic. So good. So did it take you back?
Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
absolutely.
I'd forgotten about clip-on earrings. That lovely. Ouch.
Now, Maggie, because I think it made me think of one of your poems, Instructions on Insertion, which is kind of, when we talk about honesty, this one's really a little bit out there, isn't it?
It is. I'm just going to read the first and the last verse, so I won't regale
There's
you
a
with-
lot happening in the
There's a lot happening in this poem,
Yeah.
but you can sort of guess what it's about from the first and the last stanza. Instructions on insertion. In anticipation, I would sneak to my mother's dressing table, slide open the bottom drawer, lifting her camisoles carelessly aside to see the pink modest package and modesty belt. She'd put away for the day they would need me, a long way before the days of self-adhesives. And it goes on a bit and then it ends. I think of my tiny mother, wombless by the time I first menstruated, and me returning from the big smoke full of modernity to show her a packet of Tampax that neither of us knew how to use. She lay on my bedroom floor with her knees up and tried to instruct me on insertion.
So two women, not quite hand in hand, but definitely together,
sharing an experience,
sharing
which
an
is what
activity.
she's doing in that ladies' room, that lovely camaraderie.
And women's stuff and women's bodies.
Yes, I just love Jen's poems.
Yes. Isn't it great?
And your Rachel, I was thinking also with one of yours, which you write a lot about being one of many sisters, and you've got a little bit there, voices, which I wondered if you could read maybe the first few stanzas of that, because it was such a gorgeous woman feeling.
Yes, it is very much too. That's true. So I call it voices, like the voices of your parents or somebody else important that you never stop hearing. So once upon a time there were 6 little girls. All my stories start like this, and we all lived happily, giggling and squabbling and reading and wriggling and running free and running deep into the macrocarpa hedge. And Daddy David was a country vicar, and he always said, be kind. And he was kind. He was always kind. Now from the grave, our dear dead Daddy still reminds us to be kind, and we try. We do our best. We try. As for Celia, our mother, every day she pushed us out the door and whispered, go on, have an adventure, go! And we obeyed. Decades dead, she still says that, and we obey. It's easy. It's okay. The last 2 lines of this poem I think you can't live without, because it's all about, Jan's, it's all wrapped up the generations. I need my mother. I need my father. I am my mother. I am my father now.
Yeah.
Very nice,
Okay,
very nice,
lovely.
gorgeous.
Like it or not.
And so leading on from that, your choice of poem of Jan's that spoke to you was in Family Photos, the first section there called Grandmother.
Yes,
So if you could read that one, please.
indeed.
Yeah.
Grandmother. I can't recall my grandmother, although clearly she did visit once. There's a photo of her with Mother and me seated at the stern of a ferry. I'm sitting between them in a white smock and a large sun hat that won't behave. Annoyed at not being able to trail my fingers in the water and adults talking over my head. When I asked my mother years later if the woman in the photo was a friend, she told me it was her mother. Why didn't she say my grandmother? The first tiny flag raised.
No, so we're
That
talking.
poem works really well because as you read along and then other poems reveal the story.
Exactly.
It's a
There's a
lovely,
secret.
tantalising hook.
It really
Yes, I
is.
was puzzled, but I kept thinking, and then of course you get the reward. Yeah. Well,
So that we're talking different secrets here, perhaps. Not always,
Yes, but when I was
What's
thinking about
obvious?
this poem, I thought really in the 1940s and 50s, most families had a secret, and it was the same secret. It was about a baby.
many babies.
It really was.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And
actually,
even-
this is the question bigger than the hawk.
Oh, yeah.
It's the core of this
Yeah.
book, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think we want to spoil it for
No,
readers
don't.
Okay.
No,
by
That's-
saying
no,
what that
that's
question
good.
is, but that's
No.
the
Yeah.
secret is flagged, as you say, right near the start.
Yeah.
Now, this led you to Methuselah, which is
Yes,
your poem
Methuselah.
about.
Because, I mean, this book has really, I don't think it has anything bad about my parents, and we were just unbelievably lucky as children. I was about 30 when I finally found out that not everybody had a happy childhood. And some people carried these voices, the bad voices, around forever. But don't get me wrong, we had secrets. There were buried secrets about babies in our past, and they were all covered up. It just almost seems to me it was the norm. But this is a nice poem about my wonderful grandmother, who was pretty amazing, and my littlest sister Penny, who used to go and be looked after by her. Penny was going to kindergarten. My mother was seizing the chance, the last child old enough to get out of the house and stay out half the day, and she trained as a teacher, the pressure cooker scheme. Another memory, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, anyway, so here's a little Penny with grandmother. Methuselah. Everyone knows it's best to be young, for the young are beautiful by default, and the young are perfectly divine, and old is the ultimate insult. Even a 3-year-old knows how to crush a woman in power. And so when Mim, our grandmother, popped our little sister on the old tea trolley, away from the Hoover and fun, Penny bellowed, "You are an extremely old woman, and you look it." But the curse was powerless, and worse. Mim laughed, and ever after signed her letters, "Yours, Methuselah." She found the label of extremely old to be incongruous and comical and true. There we go.
Very
Lovely,
nice.
lovely grandmother.
Very funny.
Yes, she did have an amazing sense of humour. Yeah.
Humour, always a good thing.
Yeah.
You've got some poems in your book, Maggie, about being a grandmother yourself,
Yes.
not a Methuselah type
No.
granny, but a kind of quite groovy granny actually in Korea, because you've got
Yes, I'm
family
very,
there.
very lucky, yeah. Cross-cultural grandmother, yeah.
And you call you there. They call you Halmoni.
Harmony, yeah.
Harmony.
Yeah,
Harmony?
yeah, harmony,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. It's a general term for old lady, really, but it is grandmother. I mean, older
not
women are
not
called
Methuselah.
grandmother. No,
Yeah.
no, not. But yeah, it is. It is a term about you're considered to be old. I
Yeah.
guess.
There's
The
some
harmony is generally the old women, I guess. Yeah,
It's
it's a
quite
general term.
interesting kind of your transformation from writing about grandmothers and mothers in the
Yeah.
distance, in the childhoods, which you both write about, and so does Jan, and then transforming into one yourself.
It's such a
interesting.
privilege.
Yes, exactly. It really is. So then, Maggie, in terms of the poem of Jan's that you've selected, you've gone the other way. You've kind of gone for the manliness of
Yes, I this poem just leapt
not
out
just
at
about
me.
women. Yeah.
And what I love about it is, what I love about all of Jan's poetry is it speaks to the ordinary, and yet she infuses so much of nature and her absolute love of nature. But this is different again, and it's called Mechanic, and it's just an absolute, I don't know, tribute to every mechanic really, and to the man and his tools, and it's just fabulous. And locally, you know, Mary, we have this wonderful mechanic who I've been going to for the last 30 years, Paul, but his shop's called Sergio, so for years I called him Sergio because I thought that was his name. Yeah.
He wouldn't
I now
mind.
know he's
That's his
Paul.
dad's
Anyway,
name.
so I want to read this poem to him. Thank you, Jan. It's a fabulous poem. Mechanic. Like a minor god who's hoisted the sun with block and tackle, the mechanic wheels a tyre along the pavement, opens the roller door of his garage and shrugs on a pair of overalls. Could anything be colder than a lube bay on a frosty morning? He doesn't seem to notice. Instead, lends some muscle to a stubborn wheel nut, strides from one side of an engine to the other. A lion tamer, getting the measure of a new beast in the menagerie. An asthmatic car lurches onto the forecourt. The mechanic flicks an eyebrow. Hello. Motions the driver to pop the bonnet. He leans in and cocks his ear. A chirping drive belt, clicking tappers. Not a biggie, this one. He adjusts the idling screw. Never happier than hearing an engine ticking over, running sweet, the world put to right again.
Oh, I love it.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yes.
It's one of my favourites. I love the way it's about one man, but it's got this bigger sense of itself. It sort of brings in mythology, really. He's Atlas, isn't he?
Yes.
Holding the world on his shoulders and putting things to
and
right.
a lion tamer,
Yeah, very
and the
good.
kind of people we take for granted because we just want our car fixed, you know, they're always there, but we kind of I mean, poetry overlooks those people. The tradesman don't often get their moment in poetry, so I like it.
And the stuff of men's work.
Men's
isn't
work,
it?
yeah.
Sorry, Rich.
I think that a lot of people reading that poem would immediately think of their own mechanic and value them, you know.
Yeah.
Look a bit closer next time.
No,
maybe. Just
no,
get
not
the
closely
feel of
anyway.
it.
And it's that lovely non-verbal communication that I read, because that's usually they're usually doing a lot in another car, so they're not going to have a big long conversation. So yeah.
And the way, I mean, Jan writes about a lot of characters in her life that she notices, and you pick people out of her childhood and say,
The priest.
Yeah,
I love the one where she's. I think it's related to perhaps maybe the Serenity Prayer and one of the priests, and then he surprises her by playing something really great on the piano instead of something holy and sort of. No, it's really fun.
Oh, can I read a few
Yes,
lines
of
from
course.
Window Washer? That's another
Yes, I love that
absolutely
too.
gorgeous
Go.
one. I love that because one of my sons is a window cleaner, among other
nice.
things. And not a bit like this, but again, she really values this person. Window washer. He was short and widowed. Glasses thick as encyclopedias. Ears like a mouse's and full of the answers for which I had the questions. Mother said not to talk to him on the way to school. He was agnostic, whatever that meant.
I love it.
Yes, so that's a wonderful poem,
The
how
things-
it unfolds, yeah.
The things she picks out. With
He was
her
agnostic,
agnostic.
yeah.
It's got a happy ending too.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the character poems very much, and it shows that roving eye of a poet. You know, where she goes with her thinking the things she sees in the world. I just love that.
Roving eye, did you say?
A roving eye, in a good way. Trust you to go there, Rachel McAlpine. I'm meeting the eye, looking at the world, as Jan's does wonderfully. Now, you, having read Mechanic, that made you think of one of yours, Maggie, which I'm so glad you're going to read.
Well, it's
because one of my
lovely for me to
favourites.
share this. I mean, this is about Jan, not us, but it is lovely to share. There's just, when I read Jan's poems, I felt this connection because of the theme. So mine's Ode to My Kenwood. Someone, actually, a reviewer said how much I'd mentioned sort of household appliances, and I was a bit shocked. I hadn't quite realised.
It's a strength.
Just called Formica, after all. Ode to My Kenwood. The mechanic wants to know, did you stop when the smoke arose? Was there a pop before you stopped whipping the cream? We rescued the cream, almost whipped, and then by hand with a fat metal whisk, we finished the beating to a full froth. You, my trusty Kenwood, with your dough hook and your forever useful K-blade, your cream-beating heart of steel. From the kitchen bench you've watched us, felt the panic when a mixture curdled. On your watch, heard me swear, caught whole eggs that slipped from our fingers before they cracked, held the shells intact, as if you knew how to soften the blow. And now, through wear and tear of 40 years, you've stopped. Our granddaughter learned to make cakes with you. She licked your sturdy bowl cleaner than a dishwasher, preferring the butter sugar mix and sometimes ignoring her mother's advice not to eat raw eggs just in case. You've up and died, my lovely Kenwood, just at the moment when our granddaughter has sprung her teenage wings. I'm missing the two of you. Yeah, I'm really missing her.
Such a good ending.
How many people would think of their own Kenwood, their own mixer at the same time? Very beautiful. And again, that's women's work in a sense, isn't it? The baking, the cooking, but also sharing recipes with a granddaughter.
Yes, it's a strong theme with all of our work, which probably makes our books really speak to each other. And I was very inspired when I began writing for Mocha, when I saw Rachel's poem. So it's lovely, isn't it? I feel this real connection that our books speak to each other, and hey, it's important. The story of women through those difficult times, and I think these books are useful for women of our age, and we're at different ages, we're different decades, but also our daughters and their granddaughters. It's a story, isn't it? Yeah.
And that recognition is so important, isn't it? When you read that, I've seen it many times when you read it to a crowd, and they just love it.
Well, my Conray Heaton.
Yeah, your Conray Heaton does the same. She's written about a Conray Heaton. It's marvellous, really. So the stuff of the secret lives of women, and I guess men, the mechanic, but it's our looking at that and what we see, but also the stuff, the work that people do.
And there's a poem in here of Jan's that's so romantic. Where she's talking about being a young schoolgirl and the hats floating, a kind of a gesture of romance. And at the end, she talks about her and her partner right now can still float their hats down the estuary. It's a beautiful metaphor. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
So she's really good at that.
So I think, and you mentioned to me, Maggie, before we spoke here, that about the lyrical language that Jan used, and that's certainly very much about, I mean, there's the humour and there's that sort of upfrontness of her writing, just looking something head on and writing about it, but there's that language that just pulls and teases out some really, really lovely beauty, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's what I really envied when I read it, because she's done the stuff like me, but when I saw all the beautiful evocations and all the childhood stuff with the birds and her attention to the detail, gorgeous.
Don't be jealous.
Poets can be jealous.
It
can be
wow.
Yes, I do know. I know all too well.
I'm happy for Jan.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and there is a lot of nature in there, and a lot her appreciation of nature, I guess, what it gives to her. In terms of feeling good in the world, and there's sort of a vivacity, really, the liveliness, but also solace, I guess, when things aren't so good. And that inspired you. There was one poem particularly that you enjoyed there, Rachel.
Oh, I've lost my post-it. Here it is.
Please.
Yes, this really appealed to me, a little quiet poem, and, in the midst of more exciting ones, some of them. But it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Plea. Let us be ill with silence, open to stillness and the pulse of small things. Let us catch a contagion of quiet from the eloquence of flowers and the colour of leaf. Let us bathe in the space between musical notes in the moment the gale abates. Let it be a day when clouds are word perfect and the world has nothing to say. I think that's kind of got the spirit of this cover image, the space between the hawk and this flying, leaping, sort of existentially mysterious person at the bottom is all there. It's Jan being with herself and listening. Yeah, I think.
It's interesting that let us be ill and then let us catch a contagion of quiet.
Yes.
It's,
I mean, yeah, it's like being in love. It's just all too much, but beautiful, yes. You don't swap it out.
And then that's where I've just found the one I was kind of ripping
okay.
love story. I
Oh,
won't
yes.
read
Read a
it, but
bit.
the beautiful evening.
No, do. Not the whole lot.
No,
just a bit.
I can't
Pick a
read.
line.
I just love. She's speaking about being a teenager, and
Oh,
I
yes.
swipe your cap. The one thing I really want to keep, and throw it in the estuary, tit for tat, in a game of hats. So it's kind of like they're flirting. This boy's
Yes.
rolled up on his bike and he's kind of groovy, but they're not able to express it. And so then she's now, as she said, we're now in our 70s, and I don't think it's the same boy, but wouldn't that be nice? I'm not going to try and assume, but it's just beautiful. She says, I take off my Panama and you take off your blue jersey. If neighbours come knocking, let them think we're napping. And hooray, hey, we can still float our hats on the estuary. Isn't that just fine?
Yes,
marvellous.
it's a superpower.
Yeah. And it's called Love Story.
Yes,
So,
and it's to
wow.
her partner,
Yes.
Leonard Lambert, who's also a poet.
yes.
Lovely and marvellous. I think it just sits there in the middle, doesn't it? This
Yeah.
rather beautiful
Rather gorgeous poem.
going from then until now, which I think that a lot of your work does, pulling us into that stream. So having read Plea, Rachel, then you thought of one of yours, the
Yes.
basics of well-being.
Yes, it's not in a way mine. It really belongs to Elsie. So now we come full circle with grandmothers. So we are grandmothers.
Yeah.
And when one of my grandchildren, Elsie, was about 5, she became my life coach. She would come around every Wednesday and give me good advice on how to live my life and how we would spend the day, and it's been invaluable to me, and I think it could help everybody. But this particular poem is not about fighting zombies or things like that. It's called The Basics of Wellbeing, just 4 little snippets of advice. I'll just read the last 2. It's best to look out the window when you're thinking, because that helps. That helps a lot. Now, if that's not like Plea, what isn't? I mean, finally, morning is pink. If it's pink, it's morning. And if it's not pink, you have to go back to sleep for a long, long time.
This is from your granddaughter.
Yes, so she's a grown up. She's a grown up now, but just I listen to her. Yes, she's very wise.
It's a nice way to finish.
How
We
wonderful.
started with the ladies' restroom and we then did
Yes,
the ladies' resting.
that's
For a
true. We did.
long time. Very nice. So sadly we've run out of time. We've had a lovely discussion.
Thank you
both
for
of
inviting us to
It's
share this.
Yeah,
really
thrilled.
wonderful to have those books
We're really excited
talking
for
to
Jan,
each other.
yeah.
And
recommend her book.
there we go.
We do.
I did say both of these women really enjoyed reading Jan's book, and we recommend it to everybody else who wants to read an excellent book of poetry. Can take you many directions. Look at my post-it notes. Perfect way to end with Elsie's bit of advice. Thank you, and the lovely Plea before that by Jan. So thank you to you both, as I said. Thank you, Neil, for filming us today, and Linda. Thanks to Jan's husband Leonard, who we just heard about, for his support. Wardini's books for the launch sales. Poet Caro DiCarlo, who edited Jan's book. Sarah Bolland, as I said, for the beautiful cover design, and Paul Stewart for the proofing and marketing support. Finally, thanks to Jan FitzGerald for sailing with the Cuba Press. I declare this book well and truly launched. Thank you. And I should say that A Question Bigger Than Hawk can be ordered at all good bookstores, with personally signed copies available at Wardini's in Napier if you order very quickly, and on site at the Cuba Press. And ask your local library, because those local librarians are amazing, and usually if you ask, they will find for you. Ngā mihi.